hello, and welcome to another episode of the Hit Squad. Chad Range alongside Jesse Finney. Glad to have you here.
Glad to be here and glad to be sporting the jersey as well.
They're looking good, and we will get into that. They are hot. They are hot. This first segment, we got started off segment brought to you by Shamrock Fighting Championships, the home of St. Louis MMA, Pro MMA, the triple, just the minor leagues, the triple crown there of pro fighting in St. Louis. Talk about that. I mean,
it's where a lot of fighters came from the St. Louis mixed martial arts area to make it into the UFC. We call it the AAA of mixed martial arts, professional mixed martial arts here in St. Louis. Shamrock Fighting Championships.
And we'll be getting
ShamrockFC.com.
Check them out for upcoming fights. We'll get to them in the fourth segment. But I want to touch with Jon Jones defeating Alexander Gustafsson. Both fighters medically suspended for 60 days. That one goes the distance. Great fight. I mean, that's what Jon Jones needed, I think. Something that pushes pushes the envelope with him.
Give him a little bit of a wake-up call.
Absolutely.
Give him a little bit of a wake-up call, and hey, listen, you know what? You took Gustafsson, you're talking a little too easy. You're talking about Glover Teixeira, you're talking about other guys, and listen, you had Alexander Gustafsson in front of you. I scored the fight for Gustafsson, okay? I had it 48-47. I gave 3-2. So, I mean, it was a hell of a fight. You got to beat the champ to be the champ. I don't buy that. If you win the fight, you win the fight. Cut and dry. I also think that this is a great thing for Jon Jones. I mean, the guy fought and gave his heart and soul, almost cried because they were going to stop the fight in the first round because of a cut. And I tell you what, this turns it back to what Jon Jones needed.
Absolutely. And for both fighters, the question is, will there be a rematch? What I think about that is there's so many good fighters at the light heavyweight. Jon Jones, he retained the championship. Maybe had he lost, I'd have felt different. Yeah, put him right back in there, Anderson Silva, Chris Weidman style. But I think there's so many other fights that need to happen. I'm not saying there won't ever be a rematch, but I just think there's so many good fighters at this weight class. We could stand to have a few fights and then bring it back if both Gustafsson and Jones remain unbeaten.
4-man tournament.
There you go.
4-man tournament. Gustafsson, Daniel Cormier, Glover Teixeira, and Jon Jones.
Yeah.
Okay. Who do you put? You put those four together. You match them back up, and then they both fight for the title. And you know what? Hey, listen, Jon Jones. If you lose. Let's say to Daniel Cormier. Cormier's got to fight the winner of Gustafsson and Glover Teixeira.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
I mean, you never know. Or Gustafsson. So this is something where it's like, hey, put those four together, let's see what happens, and then if he gets the rematch and they both earned it, give it to him.
Absolutely. I think it could definitely happen. I don't think it needs to happen for their next fight.
I agree with you, and not the next fight. And you know what? How can you take this away from Glover Teixeira?
And that's what
that is really it. How can you really take that away from him and say, listen, you beat this guy, you're going to get a title shot. You beat this guy, you get a Glover shot. You get a title shot.
What is it, 20 in a row for the guy?
I mean,
is there anyone more deserving?
No, there's really not. And you know what? You got to give him the opportunity.
Absolutely.
And I want to see Daniel Cormier at 205. I want to see Daniel Cormier at 205. Alexander Gustafsson is a tough fight for him simply on reach alone.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I love to see Daniel Cormier and Jon Jones. That's a matchup I've been waiting to see.
Absolutely, and we will get to that, and we'll touch more on that. Of course, Glover Teixeira is hoping for his shot at the title and not to be put on hold for a rematch of Jones versus Gustafsson. This is what he said. Even though I want to watch the fight again, and who doesn't? That was a great fight. We talked about it. But it's hard to say I'm okay with it because I've worked so hard to get this opportunity. I felt like I had my hands right there on the chance, and now they're going to take it away from me, and who knows for how long. It could be a year from now. Great point.
Great statement. I don't think they're going to take it away from him. I actually think that they're going to go right back to Glover Teixeira, and he's going to fight Jon Jones coming up. And I think it'll happen probably in the next four to 6 months because Jon Jones is beat up, man. I mean, he might be medically suspended for 60 days, but he's going to be out for at least 90 before he can really start training again. He's hurting.
So that would be 3 months, and
I'd say it'll probably happen in
closer to
4 months from now.
So I mean, are we looking where Jones is possibly just fighting maybe twice a year?
Probably. I mean, if he goes through wars like this, he might be fighting once a year if it happens again. So I mean, twice a year. 3 times a year for a champion, I think is more than enough.
Yeah,
I really
absolutely.
Do. But, I mean, 4 times a year for a good challenger, 3 times for a champion. But I mean, if you got wars like this, and if you're fighting twice a year, I'm okay with it, man. Because I mean, he put his heart and soul into it. Gustafsson put his heart and soul into it. And Jon Jones is a champion. You know what? If you have to only fight twice a year to fight that way, only fight twice a year.
You got to go through hell before you can get to heaven. So
right.
I mean, you fight 4 times a year to fight 2 times a year. That's the way it is.
Absolutely.
Okay. Interesting thing. Dana White lashes out at Ken Shamrock. I want to take a look at this video and let we know what we say. Let's roll this tape.
I don't even want to mention this guy's name, but it's just like, Ken Shamrock burst back onto the scene. Hey everybody, I'm here to save everybody, whatever. No, you're trying to become relevant again, is what you're trying to do. Let's not forget that Ken Shamrock tried to sue us. That he said that his contract, Ken Shamrock owes me $175,000. And I'm coming for it, Ken. I'm coming for the money, you piece of shit. You should have stayed wherever you were, hidden under the porch somewhere. You know, the guy owes me $175,000 because him and his scumbag lawyer put together some phony lawsuit that he lost. And he owes me $175,000 in attorney's fees. And he's out there talking about what he doesn't have and what guys aren't getting and all the shit. He's trying to make himself relevant again. And if anybody can't see that, you're just fucking stupid.
And we want to give credit for where that video came from, SB Nation and Fight Hook TV. I do love Dana White in the fact that he doesn't mince words, and that's good. But there is part of me who, as like a commissioner or something, I just kind of think if you're wanting to make this family friendly, you might not need to do it in the media like that. Well, I mean, you're going to have kids watching this stuff. And
Okay, yes, I agree with you. But if you're dumb enough to Ken Shamrock to go pick a fight with a guy that you owe $175,000 to, there's a time and a place. And here's the thing with Dana White, he's going to call you out.
Well, that's fine.
No matter what. And I agree. Now, watch your language.
Thank you. That's what I'm saying. It makes you look bad. You can do it in a way that, I mean, as a commissioner, you are the face. You don't need to be bleeping out every time you speak. Because, I mean, if we're making this a mainstream sport where it's free and the kids get to watch it free, this is the commissioner.
So you're saying Roger Goodell wouldn't do this?
Yeah. They're thinking about fining the players for profanity on a football. And believe me, I've played sports and I understand this stuff happens, and people say things. But when you are the face of an organization, and that's what makes, don't get me wrong, that's what makes Dana White, is that he doesn't mince words and he just says it. But like you said, I think there's a way to do it, and you don't have to swear about it.
You know what? I agree, and I also disagree. This is what makes Dana White, and this is what actually has put mixed martial arts on the map. But I've said this from the very beginning. I completely disagree with the profanity. I disagreed with when they were doing the Ultimate Fighter, in the very beginning they had guys urinating people's Cheerios,
all right, you said that.
So they could actually get ratings. I disagree with that stuff because ultimately you got to look long term, and long term it's going to make the sport look bad. It's going to make everything look bad. Now you might get your ratings and you might get them right away, but who am I to second guess Dana White? But I love the fact that he's calling people out. I just don't think there's a fact you got to go cursing about it and making other things, because you know what? You have kids as well, Dana. We all have kids, but at the same time, you know what? He's created this sport. So, who are we to tell him what to do and what not to do? Because if it wasn't for Dana White in the UFC, we wouldn't have this job. I wouldn't have gyms and promotions and everything else going through mixed martial arts if it wasn't for Dana. So at the same time, but that's just my opinion. Slow it down with the profanity when it comes to things like this so people don't see it.
And that's fine. And maybe hire a face guy to,
He is a face guy.
Yeah, but I mean, you want the guy to, you don't want the thugs and the roadie and the sailors and the bad guys. You don't want that to become the sport.
How many women are going to look at that statement? I thought it was perfect, but at the same time, I also think, man, you could have went without the profanity. But how many women are going to look at this and go, man, mixed martial arts is terrible. It's thuggish. It's brutal because people are cursing and this and that. And there's so many women, and it's got a stereotype out there right now that's, it's a brutal sport, and it's bad. Hey, man, you know what? We all make mistakes. Right. I don't think Dana should have went about it this way. But at the same time, who am I to be second-guessing him, number one? And number two, it's like, hey, I think you can go about it in a cleaner way.
Absolutely. Well, something else we want to touch on, of course, it's going to happen in December, the 28th, Anderson Silva versus Chris Weidman. Of course, Silva wants his revenge. He says, I'm going to give back the knockout. The new Anderson is coming. That's what I've wanted to hear from the moment I watched that guy hit the mat.
Hey, I tell you what.
Finally. Here we are, September, And it finally came, and that's what I wanted to hear.
Well, I don't think that the new Anderson, he says he's going to do this and he's going to do that. I just don't think you can just flip a switch and say, okay, I'm gonna fight harder now. Which, yeah, you can possibly fight harder, but at the same time, you're getting up there in age and you're also fighting an incredible wrestler with great jiu-jitsu and Chris Weidman, who's already beat you once. And actually, I think that the press and the nerves got to him the first time, and this time it's going to be a lot more relaxing for him. I look for Chris Weidman to take out Anderson Silva probably again in the second round. I personally, that's my personal opinion, but I think we're all entitled to him. But I also think that Anderson Silva is starting to believe his own hype, and he's starting to think, okay, is this kid really better than me? Is this kid better than me? I think that Anderson Silva is going to have his hands full with Chris Weidman.
They fight hard no matter. I think it was the antics. The stuff that if you look back at the old...
That is Muhammad Ali. That's what made Muhammad Ali. That's what makes Anderson Silva. I mean, that is part of his allure. If you watch him and he draws you in, that is why I feel like that he is so good. It's because of the way that he fights, and he gets people with the head games. Hey, and if you think you're going to change that, and now you're all of a sudden you're start to keep your hands up and you're going to start to bang, I don't know if that's going to work real well for you, Anderson Silva.
Well, yeah, we will see on the 28th.
This is why we all got to buy the pay-per-view on this one.
That one's a good one. I will probably buck up for that one. There's not very many I do, but that one I'm interested in. Daniel Cormier versus Roy Nelson. Cormier wants Big Country's beard gone. He said he's actually filed a complaint with the Texas Department of Licensing and Registration to force Nelson to clean up his signature beard. Cormier says the beard gives Nelson an unfair advantage in the fight. My advice to Cormier would be the same thing Chuck Norris would tell Cormier. Grow a beard. If it gives him an advantage, grow one of your own. I don't understand how it gives him an advantage. Maybe he doesn't like it rubbing on him, or
no, it gives a little extra padding, so he's not getting his hit, and he's not getting a little more padding on his jaw. But I tell you what, he's going to need that extra padding because Daniel Cormier is going to put his hands on him, and I think that this is just. I feel like almost antics and playing head games and maybe to hype the fight a little bit, which I think it's great because it gets us talking about it, gets everyone else talking about it. I think this is an interesting fight, man. I really do.
I wanted this fight.
I mean, Cormier, I think, is one of the most underrated fighters out there, and especially if he goes to 205, I think he can be a world champion. But I think that, you know what, he needs to worry about the fight, not worry about his beard as much. Well, it's an extra 15 minutes of his day to file a complaint, so keep that in mind.
It's an unfair advantage in a fight. I can't see it giving you that much padding. I don't know. We'll address them.
Any advantage is an advantage.
Well, I mean, tell him to grow a beard. Why can't he grow one?
Because they're ugly.
I mean, that's it.
What's Cormier got to lose?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, yeah.
Or what's big? I'm sorry, excuse me. What's Big Country have to lose?
Big Country Roy Nelson. Well, we'll be tackling some other issues next on 101sports.com.